We still have good comic books to talk about on this fun football weekend, the opening of the playoffs. And this is just a dynamite week, to be completely honest, Drew. We got a couple of really good debuts from Marvel Comics. We've got another banger from Transformers, another banger from freaking Green Lantern, a pretty darn good debut on Action Comics, a weird comic book from Mad Cave that I just couldn't deny. It was a good week.
It's a solid week all around. It's a great variety of stuff this week. That's great. Not just superheroes. Indies, DC, Marvel. Yeah, this is one of those weeks that you're very blessed to have because they don't come around too often.
Absolutely. We got to start out with the indie comic books. And what I think is the best comic book this week by far, Transformers #4, Skybound, Daniel Warren Johnson writing and illustrating this bad boy. And I still think Transformers #1 is like a perfect comic book. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, whatever you say. Transformers #4 might be that as well. If it's not as good as Transformers #1, it's just a little bit below that one. But this is really bringing a lot of the things that Daniel Warren Johnson has set out in this Transformers series all together. And we really do get to see just how disgusting the Decepticons are and just how wonderfully heroic the Autobots are, specifically Optimus Prime, as he's got a spike in his arms. He's trying to get him to the hospital. And the moment when Soundwave is basically mocking him that you would actually take one of these squishy things to the repair center, makes you weak and all this kind of stuff. Amazing storytelling.
Yes, and I will say, I think I touched upon this maybe briefly in one of the prior issues of Transformers, but I will say this here. What separates this run from anything at IDW is that we see the heart here. We get the heart. When I say that, I mean we get to see the heart of the Transformers, specifically the Autobots, just how much they care for the human beings, how much they love the human beings, just how they realize just how smaller they are and how not necessarily weaker they are, but like how much more fragile that they are. And the Decepticons, with that lack of heart that they have, specifically Starscream, the biggest piece of shit on the planet, just how much he's willing to expose that, how much he's willing to take advantage of that against the Autobots. It's heartbreaking. And you really just see the care here for the characters, the humans, the Transformers, just how they're all unique and special as compared to anything that IDW did. You really feel the emotional attachment to the characters. You want them to make it through. And you want to see the Decepticons just go down hard. But one of the coolest moments in here, I don't know if we can spoil it or not, but like it's what happens to Optimus Prime toward the end. He gets a new arm. I thought that was awesome. I loved it. And we get a little tease of a certain Decepticon at the end of this issue. But yeah, this issue has heart, it has horror, it has action. This has everything you want if you are a Transformers fan and you love great characters.
Now, you mentioned this comic book has a lot of heart. You don't just mean it figuratively, you mean it literally, because Optimus does rip his own heart out and gives the last bit of energy that he has to the humans so they can give it a fighting chance to save Spike. And it just really delineates what great characters Optimus Prime and the Autobots are in comparison to the Decepticons. And we do get to see Jazz in this issue. I think this was the first time he showed up. And we do get that awesome cliffhanger at the end that Megatron is on Earth. And what the Decepticons are planning to do with him, basically to steal his parts to fix themselves, I thought was just diabolical stuff. It had me salivating for the next issue.
Absolutely. And yeah, and back to Optimus Prime. Honestly, I've had the firmest belief for the longest time that Optimus Prime is probably the greatest fictional hero of all time, because he will do whatever he can to make sure that life survives, that he will do whatever he can to be a hero, to save lives, whether it's sacrificing himself. Because we see, like you said, I didn't want to spoil it or anything, but you brought it up. Spike is in the hospital bed in the ER, and he uses the Matrix, and to save this one life of Spike. And it just shows you what a true hero Optimus Prime is. You look at the definition, it's Optimus Prime. And yeah, the end of this, what they're teasing and hinting at, I can't wait to get it, because I guarantee you Daniel Warren Johnson nailed it, story and art-wise. But this gives you everything you want in heroes, villains, and action, suspense. This is a true knockout, home run of a comic book.
Absolutely. If you've not been reading Transformers, definitely jump on that. That was absolutely amazing. Another great end to a series, or at least not a series, I guess it's to a story arc. The Sacrificers #6, Image Comics, Rick Remender, Max Fumera. Now, we've been buying into who these Sacrificers are, specifically the Pigeon, who was taken away from his family, and we've seen the machinations behind the scenes of all the gods and what they stand for and what they're actually using these sacrificers for, to what they're going to do. And it kind of all comes to a head right here in this issue. And I do think the Sacrificers goes down as one of the truly brilliant comic books out there on the market today.
Absolutely. And probably, I mean, Rick Remender, he's been doing this for a while now. He's got a lot of titles under his belt, but I really, truly believe this is probably one of his finest books he's ever done. And I can't recommend this enough, especially, I mean, so one of the characters we thought died may not have died in the previous issue, but what happens to her in this issue and the person who does it to her, I loved it. It was beautiful. It was great. You know, it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, she had this coming. But we do see like how this immortal elixir, is how it may or may not be corrupting. It may corrupt the soul, the mind, the body of the individual, turn into something else. Because we see it happen to a certain character we've been following in previous issues. It gives him a turn of a character where we haven't really seen this darker side of him. But it's interesting. It's a great turn, it's a great twist, and it's a great cliffhanger for what happens next. I mean, this is another indie book. It's another banger. The art is fantastic. The narration, storytelling. I cannot recommend this issue enough, along with Transformers.
Another comic book that debuted this week, and I'm surprised I'm recommending it, Dear Editor #1 from Mad Cave, Ryan K. Lindsay and Sammy Cavella on art on this one. And it's such a strange book because the main character, I think his name is Buck, he's actually got a deer head, and he works for a newspaper company. He's an investigative reporter, and he's gotten himself into some hot water where he's investigating murders and all that kind of stuff. But nobody else in the book has a deer head. They're all kind of humans. But everyone acts like he's just a regular person, and they play it very, very straight. Although, because he does have some deer capabilities, he can smell things and stuff. And the art in it is really particularly good. It's almost black and white, but they do like the grayscale in blue. And I think it looks like a really slick book. I just thought the premise was hilarious in the way that they played it so straight. And it was a nice, cool, investigative story to kind of dive into.
Yes, and speaking of the colors, you know, color can really set the mood, specifically when it comes to comic book stories. And I was going over this last night with Miracle Man. There are colors used in panels that really resonate, like the emotion of that panel. And the color blue really does set the mood, the tone for the book. I feel it's very appropriate. This is a book I really feel like if it had come out, let's say 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, this probably would have been a Dark Horse Comics book. Absolutely. It probably would have been in their anthology book right next to Concrete. And it's a fun, interesting, head-scratching read because you're going to remain calm when you're reading this, all right? It is it's an interesting read. But yeah, you're going to have a lot of questions, but just go with it, all right? It's just, it's a guy with a deer head, and he's a writer, editor, and I thought he was a private investigator because he's carrying a gun. But there's so many questions going on in this. But it's a fun mystery with what's going on here, and you're not bored reading this. And that's the most egregious sin you can commit when writing a story, making it boring. This is not boring at all. Your head is you're going to be asking yourself so many questions reading this story, and I do recommend this.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. That was kind of one of those books I wasn't looking forward to, wasn't really on the radar. I read it. I was like, I got to talk to people about that one. Those are our indie book recommendations. Let's go move over to Marvel Comics. They had a pretty big week. This is probably the most important week in Marvel Comics in 2024 due to the debut of Ultimate Spider-Man #1. Jonathan Hickman, Marco Cicchetto. Definitely recommending this one. I did a full review on the channel. Some people are upset with me because I didn't like it enough, apparently. It was perhaps the most boring way that you could actually tell this story, but there's so much interesting stuff introduced into here to what this universe is. The big changes that have happened to Peter Parker's life, him getting the powers when he's 35 rather than when he's 15 or whatever. And I quite enjoyed it. I just hope Marco Cicchetto gets to illustrate Spider-Man soon. But I thought it was a good start.
All right, so I'm going to be the ice bucket, for them to wake up, hopefully after reading this, because there are a lot of people who are really, huffing the farts of this comic. But real quick, what I'm going to say is last night, Jim Mint, myself, Max, Field Von Priestley, MVP, Kyle, my brother, we discussed Miracle Man and A Dream of Flying specifically. Now, when you read those issues, originally, that story, the introduction, those were 7 pages. Just 7 pages, each chapter. That was it. That's all Alan Moore had to tell the story. And he gets it across beautifully, perfectly in 7 pages. This took Jonathan Hickman 40 damn pages to get across what's going on. And that is an absolute waste of real estate. It was a boring, long, drawn out introduction to this world. Look, I do admire what he's trying to do here. I do see some glimmers, some gleams of Miracle Man here, setting up. You have Peter Parker in his mid-30s. He feels like he doesn't know what's going on with his life. He's missing something. It's similar to Miracle Man. But where this separates from Miracle Man is that this took him 40 damn pages to get to where he needs to go to. Miracle Man took 7, which is beautiful. I mean, that just shows you how important pacing is in a comic. The pacing in this, there's no pacing. It's boring. It's by the time I got halfway through this, I'm like, Jesus, I got another 20 pages to go. Nothing's happening. But I do respect, like I said, how he's introducing the character, the role he's setting up. But he took way too long, and no one said, hey, you may want to make this a little bit more kinetic, more exciting. Nothing happens here. No Spider-Man at all, period. And an Ultimate Spider-Man book that costs you $6. This is not worth $6.
Well, man, you just raid on my parade. I like the book way more than you.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I tried reading this. Like, I wanted to like this. I was really looking forward to this. But I mean, like I said, I respect with what he's trying to do here. But there was a much better way to do this, and he did not do himself any services by making it 40 pages. This should have been 20 some odd pages, and he could have gotten the point across. But no, this was boring.
It could have picked up the pace. I also was looking to see how many pages were left when I was a little over halfway through. But me personally, I like that one. Definitely recommend it. The other one that I'm very surprised I'm recommending, Rise of the Powers of 10, #1, Kieran Gillen, R.B. Silva. Well, actually, this isn't very good for about 10 pages. I was like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? But then there's this like weird twist to where the comic book just changes gears, goes in another direction, and absolutely starts not really paying off a lot of the stuff Jonathan Hickman was setting up at House of X Powers of 10, but starts really diving into it. And R.B. Silva just dials the art up to about 50 billion, and it became a really good book by the end. I couldn't believe just like the weird veer that it takes after introducing this really terrible X-Men team that was laughable.
Yes, his X-Men team was very laughable, and like they showed Miss Marvel as the new Captain Planet. That's what I'm calling her. She's Captain Planet in this book, and it's a joke. But like, let's see what happens to them. It's like great. All these X characters have had it coming. But yeah, I really did enjoy this. I love what they're setting up here. And in my opinion, this is probably the second or third best X-Men comic period since Jonathan Hickman left or was done all those years ago. And I do love what they're setting up here at the end. Like what happens to the universe as a whole, the galaxy by the end of this. It's like, what the hell just happened? It's pretty shocking what happens. And what Xavier and Doug realize what they have to do to prevent all of this from happening. It's like, okay, do they have the balls to do this? Are they going to?
I'm down for the cause. I would do it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Hell yes. I really hope we see this follow through. They follow through on this. Yeah, because what they're setting up here is something pretty damn awesome. Yeah, this is a strong recommend for Powers of X. Was Powers of X?
Rise of the Powers of 10.
Rise of the Powers of 10. There we go.
Or as Doc calls it, Rise of the Powers of My Balls. What is a terrible name that they put on these damn things. So that was the big shocker for me. I didn't think this was going to nail anything, especially after the flop that was Fall of the House of X. But it was pretty damn good. We got 3 more recommendations from DC Comics. Like I said, it was a good week. Titans Beast World #4, Tom Taylor, Lucas Meyer. It definitely picks up the pace, starts answering some things to where I thought it kind of lost its way in the 3rd issue. We get to see Giganta turn into an enormous kaiju bear, which I thought was absolutely amazing. And then we see Amanda Waller's solution to the Garo problem being set up in the beginning in a really funny bit with Peacemaker that I thought was very, very effective. And then by the time it happens, you're like, holy crap, they did it. It was very well done. Just exciting stuff in this comic book.
Absolutely. This is the Tom Taylor that we have all grown to love from Deceased. This is the deceased Tom Taylor that we've wanted to see for the longest time now, and he's finally shown up, and I love it. This has turned out to be a pretty decent event. At least the main issues of this event have been really damn good. They've all been solid, and this one was really good. We really see the consequences of what's going to happen to the Earth, to the galaxy, and because what happens at the end of this issue, holy crap! Things have gone from bad to worse, but we really do see. I mean, in one light, I do like what Tom Taylor presents here, because we really do see Amanda Waller, how she can be perceived as a villain, but in this case, she's kind of perceived as a hero for what she does. She makes a sacrifice. It's hard to say, like, I can't really disagree with her. I might have done the same thing, what she does here. And the stuff with Peacemaker at the beginning, the bit I loved, I really enjoyed it. Thought it was great. And I do recommend this issue, guys. You do need to check out Beast World. This is one of the best events from DC in years.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the better events they've done in a very long time. Definitely going to recommend Green Lantern #7. Jeremy Adams, Amin Kai Nahupan takes over as a fill-in artist for Zermanico on this one. I think this was pretty easily the second best issue of the week, right behind Transformers. Green Lantern's #7 just really kicked a whole lot of ass. And we go back in time to kind of explain how we got to the status quo to where Kilowog is dead. John Stewart and Hal Jordan are not in the Green Lantern Corps anymore. They've been removed. The United Planets has taken over. Sinestro was stuck on Earth. What happened here? And we get a lot of those answers actually fleshed out, why Earth was quarantined. And I thought it was done very, very well. I wish it was done by Zermanico, but the fiddle and artist I think did a pretty darn good job as well. And it really thoroughly enjoyed this. And this one is so close to being like a 5-star comic book.
No, I agree. This was really good. This is probably the best issue of Green Lantern so far, the whole series we've got, in my opinion. Yeah, and I do love how we were shown what happened on the planet with Sinestro, just how things just fell apart and how it may have been orchestrated by Sinestro. We don't know. Maybe we're not 100% certain on that, but it probably was. But yeah, we do see what happened to Kilowog. It's devastating. It's tragic because Kilowog's always been one of my favorites. And it's a really good, emotionally gripping issue and a lot of great action in this. The artist does a really good job. It's like you said, it's not Zermanico, but artist does a good job with this. And it's tragic when you see what happens to one of your favorite characters, and you really do feel for the guys, feel for Hal, John, and Kilowog and all the others, because they're all friends, and when you lose a friend, as a reader, you feel like you lost a friend too. It's tragic. This is a really solid, damn good issue from Jeremy Adams. Do check out Green Lantern, guys.
They call that one a banger. Definitely check out Green Lantern #7, the best issue of Green Lantern so far. The final recommendation is more from you, Action Comics 1061. Jason Aaron, John Timms, obviously Jason Aaron taking over during the Superstar of Superman Initiative or whatever. And I will admit, this is a good comic book. I like Bizarro, and they're definitely taking Bizarro in a different direction. I didn't personally recommend this one because I'm still holding it against Jason Aaron and the Superman editors for removing Philip Kennedy Johnson in the middle of his story. That was certainly more impactful and more important than this Bizarro story. But Jason Aaron is doing a good job at DC Comics, which I wouldn't have expected.
Yes, and one thing, I can't believe I'm complimenting Jason Aaron. This is the second DC book I'm complimenting Jason Aaron. Never thought this would ever happen again. But yeah, what he's doing here is that he's gotten back to the basics of a Superman story, where it's just Superman. That's it. No super family, no super kids, no super cousins, no cousins of cousins, no Superman of China. It's just Superman. Perfect. And we got in this issue, we get Bizarro. There's a magical twist that happens with Bizarro in this, and him and Superman just have a full-on thrown-out fight throughout the galaxy from here to Pluto and back. It is beautifully illustrated, and there is a very, very terrifying moment toward the end of this when Bizarro, he speaks straight. He's not speaking backwards. He's speaking straight to Superman, and it is terrifying with what he says to him. And what Jason Aaron is setting up at the end of this, it's even more terrifying. And I am very much looking forward to what happens next. Jason Aaron, he's 1 for 1 so far. Let's see if he can go for 2 for 2. This is a strong recommend for Action Comics.
There you have it. Those are our recommendations for this week. And Drew, we've had a few moments since we talked about Ultimate Spider-Man. You've had some time to think about this. Are you ready to apologize, everyone, for not saying it's a good comic book?
Everyone out there who loves this book, like I said, I'm going to be the ice bucket. I'm going to dump it on your head. No, this is a boring comic. Wake up. Wake the hell up.
It was paced poorly. This is the most boring way to tell the story, but there's a lot of good stuff in there.
The most egregious sin you can do as a creator is tell a very boring story and write a very boring comic. Jonathan Hickman wrote a very boring comic here, and this is something I would never, ever do as a creator. Couldn't do.
My goodness. He's not taking it back, folks.
Nope.
Dark Drew is in the house. We no longer have the guy we knew and loved.
Bizarro Drew, yes.
Bizarro Drew, apparently. And I do want to invite people to go and check out the Patreon, because we have these discussions and even bigger ones than that when we do the Hot or Not show with Jim from Weird Science DC. Lots of fun pop culture conversations about toys and TV and all that kind of stuff with Aaron Sparrow. And we do answer everyone's questions with the Doc Q&A every single week. And we got some other stuff in there. The Comics Guilds, we get an exclusive review. We do the solicitations. Lots of fun stuff to be had on the Thinking Critical Patreon. And there's a link in the video description if you haven't checked it out yet.